welcome back. As we are still making our way through the documentation through Blender 4.0, we are going to be looking at an introductory navigation in 3D, or, for what it's worth, 2D space in this video. If you like educational content like this, please support the channel by liking and subscribing. To be able to work in the three-dimensional space that Blender uses, you must be able to change your viewpoint as well as the viewing direction of the scene. While we will describe the 3D viewport editor, most of the other editors have similar functions. For example, it is possible to pan and zoom in the image editor. Often you need a mouse and numpad to navigate in 3D space, but that isn't always necessarily true. Have a look at the top right at this colorful gizmo. This is called the Navigation Gizmo. The orbit gizmo at the top shows the current orientation of the view. Dragging it with left mouse button will orbit the view. Clicking any of the axis labels will align the view to that axis. Clicking the same axis again switches to the opposite side of that same axis. The four buttons below the orbit gizmo do the following: zoom the 3D viewport, pan the 3D viewport, and toggle the camera view. Toggle the projection. Let's learn a bit about navigating the scene, but before we do, let me just tell you that if you are already orbiting an object, flying around, etc., and you don't want to commit, you can right-click to escape back to the last view before dragging around in orbit. The Alt key also has several effects on orbiting. Clicking a point with Alt plus middle mouse button will make it the point of interest. It becomes the central point which the view orbits around. Holding Alt and then dragging with the middle mouse button in a certain direction will align the view to an axis and make it orthographic. Dragging with middle mouse button and then holding Alt will perform an orbit while also snapping to the world axis, as well as the diagonals between them. Side note, I am actually running Linux Mint as an operating system, and I would like to note that if you are running Linux, you should look at your distro options and reconfigure what the Alt key does, as it may hinder you. I had some trouble with these navigation options since it would just move the window around instead of what you would expect to happen. You can also change the viewing angle in discrete steps. Use numpad E8 and numpad 2 to go up and down, or numpad 4 and numpad 6 for left and right. You can also press numpad 9 to switch to the opposite side of the view. Rotates the camera 180 degrees around the Z-axis. If you do not have a numpad, then please refer to Edit, Preferences, and Toggle, Emulate Numpad. If you don't like the boring fixed orthographical view, you can roll your view by pressing Shift plus numpad 4, and then the other way with Shift plus numpad 6. You can reset the view back to the x-axis by pressing numpad 3. To pan around the scene, you can do so by holding Shift plus the middle mouse button and dragging around. You can also do this by holding Control and pressing numpad 2, 4, 6, or 8 for the respective direction that you wish to fly in. You can right-click to cancel out of this. To zoom in the scene, you can scroll your mouse wheel up or down or use the numpad plus or minus keys. If you want to zoom into a particular region, you can do so by pressing Shift plus B to switch to the Zoom Region tool, or clicking here, and just dragging to where you want to zoom into. In most cases, it's sufficient to zoom the view to get a closer look at something. However, zooming only gets you up to the point of interest, and no further. If you hit this point where zooming no longer works, you can instead dolly by holding Shift Control and dragging up or down with the middle mouse button. This will move the point of interest and the view along with it. Pressing the Home key will put every object back into frame. And lastly, you can put the object that you currently have selected into frame by pressing the period key on the numpad. Oh, one last thing, we will cover it more in the next video, but if you want to fly or walk around the scene, you can do so quickly by pressing Shift plus the accent key located below the Escape button on most keyboards. And that will do it for this introduction to navigation in Blender 4.0. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you like content like this, and see you next time.